Hello, my name is Daisuke Insula Ojori, and this is my presentation on morals and ethics for this week. First, I'm going to start off by defining the terms. I quoted this from the textbook in Chapter 1 for ethics. Ethics helps members of a group understand their roles and responsibilities so they can work together to achieve mutual benefits. So the way I understood ethics throughout the reading is that ethics is defined by the group a person belongs to. So by their workplace, their group of friends, their group they socialize with and they're in. And this can technically change over time because the group you're in definitely can change over time. Like you can move workplaces, you can move states, you can move countries. On the other hand, morals. So by the textbook, morals are defined by your moral principles are statements of what you believe to be rules of right conduct. And the way I saw this are like morals are your personal guidelines, they're your core beliefs. So they're the things that you believe inside of you that is correct and that you form as an individual throughout your life. So next I'm gonna go on to key distinctions. So like where does it come from? Morals come from inside. So they're the things you determine by yourself, you determine in your heart, while ethics come from outside, it comes from society, they come from the place you are, the people you are surrounded with. Who it affects? Morals affects the individual. Since it's your individual thought on what is good and what is bad, it comes from you. While ethics comes from people around you imposing what they believe is right on you. Um, does it change? Morals, like I said, probably won't change because it's something you develop by yourself over your life. While ethics do change because you can move areas, like I said in the earlier slide. Morals enforced by yourself, like you believe something is right, you believe something is wrong, so you're gonna enforce that to yourself. You're gonna say, hey, I'm not going to throw an egg at this person because I believe that's wrong. It's my personal conscience, so I enforce it myself. However, ethics are enforced by institutions or laws. So laws can be like, oh, you can't steal this person's item because that is incorrect, that is unethical. Like I said, examples of this is I believe that something is wrong, I believe lying is wrong, so I'm not going to do it, while ethics is a lawyer by law must defend their guilty client. The next slide is the research integration. The first article was written in 2024. It's called Ethical Culture in Organization. This article was about how organizations create shared ethical values. The ethical culture of a workplace can influence an employee's behavior from the outside in was the main point of the article, but the biggest takeaway was the strongest impact usually always occurs when the employee's moral standards match the ethical standards of the company, and because those two match, the company and the employee would fit better together and they're able to work better and have better performance and better commitment to the company because they agree with what the company says. The next article sort of follows a similar mindset to this. However, the shift is only in leadership. It's called Ethical Leadership, Subordinates, Moral Identity, and Self-Control, and it was written in 2023. It sort of says something similar. However, it looks at a leader's ethical behavior and how much of an effect that has on those they lead. And once again, it was found that when a leader's ethical behavior matches a subordinate's moral compass, the subordinates able to better follow the leader because, for one, they trust and believe in what the leader is saying because it aligns with what they internally believe. So leadership alone saying, I believe this is right because that's what I said doesn't always work. When it aligns with what someone believes on the inside, when it connects with them internally, that's when it has a better and greater effect on the person. The next slide is the biblical integration. So for the biblical integration, I chose Romans 12:2, verse 2, which says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So the way I saw this was the first half, do not conform to the pattern. I split it into three. So the first half, do not conform to the patterns of this world, were the ethics of the world. So it's saying the ethics of the world does not always align with the ethics of in the Bible and the ones that are of God. Like an example of this is LGBTQ and the LGBTQ community. While it's seen as a good and ethically acceptable thing in the world, in the Bible, it's not. It's not okay in the Bible. So that's where those two don't align. And the Bible's just telling us do not conform to the world because we are not meant to be of the world. And the next, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind is the morals. Our morals is telling us that we have free will to think for ourselves and be transformed by the thinking of our morals and our decisions. And the last part of the verse, you'll be able to test and prove what God's will is telling us to take both the ethics of the Bible and our morals and put them together and think on it and meditate on it, and that way we'll be able to see what God truly wants us to do and and how He wants us to behave. The next slide is the personal reflection. So, I'm a student at CSUSB as well. I do the AFRTC program over at CSUSB. And one thing about the Air Force is they make corrections in a very abrasive manner. They get up in your face, they yell at you, they're like, you did this wrong because you did this wrong and this is bad. Not really but because I told you so. And I usually don't agree with that because I don't think yelling in someone's face is really going to help them change, it's going to help them develop or make a difference the next time. So this didn't align with my personal morals. However, I decided to ask my leadership because being in the Air Force where they yelled at people for things like this didn't sit well with me, and I wasn't doing well because it didn't sit well with me. So I spoke to my leadership and they explained it to me. They told me that they're yelling not to embarrass people, not to just shout in their face, but so everyone around can hear them and can gain from this mistake. And with that understanding, I was able to better not yell at people, but I was able to learn from this and do better. And I was more comfortable with the way corrections were made in the program. So, in conclusion, the takeaway was that morals are personal. They're something you develop in your heart by yourself. So, I see them as a reflection of who you are. While ethics, I see them as a reflection or they show the people in your group and how your group really operates. Like in the Air Force, it's a military setting, so it's going to be a little more strict. So, when they align, everything is good and dandy, everything works, and you are comfortable with who you are and where you are. However, when they do not align, everything starts to clash, and that's where problems begin. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.